bring to you former NFL offensive lineman. We always got to say former Cowboy, and current CBS and Westwood One NFL analyst. It is Ross Tucker. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, fellas. How are you?
Good. Still sad about football and the fact that our team flamed out again. That might not have been the answer you were looking for, but I wanted to be honest with you.
No, I can see that. You know what the reality is? There's a lot of sad fan bases right now. I mean, obviously, Eagles fans are still sort of shocked and dismayed at what happened there. I would imagine Cowboys fans, that was a stunner. But think about the Lions fans right now, man. I mean, the poor Lions fans up by 17 at halftime to go to the first Super Bowl ever. Or even the Ravens, who, by the way, I thought were the best team in the NFL this year. They had their first home conference championship game since 1971. It was all lined up perfect, and they couldn't get it done. The reality is, I mean, I guess Niners fans will be happy that they made it to the Super Bowl, but there's really only one team that's really happy at the end. I guess Houston Texans fans are kind of happy, and maybe Green Bay Packers fans. The teams that like exceed expectations, I guess those fans are happy, but all of the legit contenders, like the Cowboys, Eagles, teams like that, Buffalo Bills, there's only misery at this time of year.
Yeah, I think you're right, because us as Rangers fans, we are still celebrating the Rangers World Series right now. So that's definitely a factor in your happiness level at the end of it. And we would be very sad if we hadn't accomplished that feat. I will say this about Detroit, though, and maybe you have a little more finger on the pulse there. I just got done watching the Bye Bye Barry documentary, which I thought was fantastic. If you haven't seen it yet, I mean, we've had Barry Sanders on. He's a phenomenal person to talk to. And it just seems like that success this year can be something they feel they can build on. And I do love Dan Campbell's approach afterwards of how, look, guys, it's going to be tougher. You're going to have to get up and work harder next year because now everybody's out to get you. They know what you're all about.
I think you're right. I have not seen Bye Bye Barry, by the way. I finally just watched the Jason Kelsey one, but I'll get to Bye Bye Barry because I want to check that one out for sure. You're right about Lions fans being happy about the season. And Dan and I were teammates briefly in Dallas, actually, until Parcells got rid of me. But, the thing I would say about Dan and his comments and Lions fans building on something, that's what everybody says. You know what I mean? Like, Cowboys fans think they'll be better next year. Like, Eagles fans, we need new coordinators. Lions fans, we'll be back. Ravens, Lamar Jackson says we'll be back. Most of the time, or at least a lot of the times, they're not. And I think, for the Lions to be able to have home playoff games against the Rams and the Bucks, it's probably not going to be any easier than that the next couple of years. So you really have to make the most of the opportunities when you have them. It's why I thought it was so critical that the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, because I knew they were going to lose a bunch of dudes, right? And the Ravens this year, Justin Madubuike is a free agent. Patrick Queen's a free agent. I don't think they're going to be as good next year. They'll probably lose their D coordinator, Mike McDonald. You must capitalize and cash in when you have these chances. And it's kind of hard to do against the Chiefs. I mean, 2 years in a row, they beat, in my opinion, the best team in the NFL. Last year, Philadelphia. This year, Baltimore. They're just that good when the games matter the most.
When you talk about the Lions, one thing that I have no doubt has them excited for the future is the return of Ben Johnson. Were you surprised that he didn't end up taking? It sounds like the commander's job was there for him if he wanted. Are you surprised he didn't take a job there?
Very. Yep, very surprised. I understand a guy like Bobby Slowick wanting to go back to Houston for a second year to build on what he did with C.J. Stroud, who was a rookie, and believing he'll go into next year as the hot candidate and maybe have his choice of several jobs. That makes sense to me, and he got an upgraded contract. The Ben Johnson one is a head scratcher because as hot as he is right now, he's not going to get hotter than that. Like, it's hard to be hotter than Ben Johnson is right now. You have a chance at a 5-year deal with $10 million a year, life-altering money for your family forever. I don't know how you don't take that. You know, they get an injury next year or people have a little bit better read on what they're doing. There's a lot of guys out there. I mean, listen, your guy Kellen Moore 2 or 3 years ago was out there interviewing for head coaching jobs. Now he's been fired 2 years in a row, or they've been let go 2 years in a row, and nobody's talking about Kellen Moore as a head coach right now. He's going to try to build it back up in Philly. So I just think, man, from a financial security standpoint, from an opportunity at a lifelong dream standpoint, you gotta cash in while you can. I'm very surprised. I would love to hear sort of what went on behind the scenes. You know, sometimes when guys say they're going to stay, it's because they find out they're not going to get the job. But I don't think that's the case, because evidently the Commanders were on a plane on their way to Detroit when he said he wanted to stay. So I don't think that was – I think they wanted him. I think they thought they were going to get him. I think they thought it was all lined up. I've heard some reports that his price tag scared some teams off. That would tend to surprise me if that was the case with Washington. I'm a little stunned by that one.
When you hear Jerry Jones say we're going all in. Now, the other day I did give them permission. I did say on air that look, we give you permission to go for it. When you hear Jerry Jones say we're going all in, is that song and dance to appease fans? And is it, hey, we're going to go sign a couple names? Or do you think there's more behind that, in that they're going to probably sign the extension with Dak and then they're going to have that money to go play with?
You know, I hate to hedge on this stuff, but to me, it's kind of a combination of both. I mean, what about them was not all in this year?
Yep.
I thought the trades for Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore this year were genius, and I loved them. I thought they were great moves. And I thought on some level the Cowboys were all in this year. So I don't really know what's different next year other than Jerry vocalizing that they're all in. You know, I'm sure you're going to try to get things done with Dak and Micah. He's been pretty outspoken about Micah. And so I think he'll probably try to get those two deals done. But I guess I would need to know, you know, I think it's song and dance until I see what's different between this year and other years. Because I don't often criticize them for not being all in. My criticism would be that I feel like they could make some of the contracts that they've done, they could do those earlier. I think they just cost themselves money a lot of times for some unknown reason.
Yeah, that is something that Kevin gets after
the time.
Too.
I so agree with you there.
I will say the mindset of all in, though, I did agree. I mean, I told them last year before the season, I said, be better at your jobs. And then they went out there and get Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore, and we were pretty pleased with what we got production-wise out of those guys this season. But then during the regular season, you're still limited interior defensive line, and you're just like, we're just going to have to deal with it. You're using safeties as linebackers, and they're just like, well, Dan Quinn will come up, he'll coach them up, everything's gonna be fine. And I felt like that's where you went all in the offseason, I guess, or you put a bunch of eggs in the basket in the offseason, and then throughout the season you just let it slip away. And that was something that I thought plagued them for the rest of the year.
I don't think they let anything slip away. They had a terrible game plan against a hot young team, and they got smoked. But it was only a one-game thing. I mean, I you guys know I do a lot of stuff for the Eagles in Philadelphia. They should feel a lot worse. That was like a 2-month collapse. For the Cowboys, it was a one-game thing. I thought Dan Quinn had a bad plan in terms of playing zone instead of man, going away from what he had done. Now, maybe, you know, his guys, Gilmore and Bland, weren't going to be able to cover those guys man-to-man. I don't know, but they went away from what they'd had success with all year. And then offensively, unfortunately, Dak and the team did not have their best game. Those, like a one-game scenario, I can deal with. I didn't feel like that's the nature of the NFL playoffs, right? It's not a best of 3, 5, 7. I didn't feel like I saw the Cowboys tailing off at the end. And I agree with you about the interior D-line, but there's not a team out there that you feel like they have great players at every position. I mean, the Chiefs don't like their receivers. You know, they overcome it with coaching and elite play elsewhere, primarily Mahomes and Kelsey. Nobody looks at their roster and is like, the best roster I've seen in a while was the Eagles last year in 2022. But everybody has, like the Niners, they got some spots on their O-line that aren't great. And with the injuries, they're not great at safety or on the back end. That's why they're not great in the third round. Also why they had to trade for Chase Young, who, by the way, hasn't really panned out. So I don't have a problem with the Cowboys roster. I don't think that they had a late season swoon. I think they had a terrible, terrible game plan, and they came out and they got smoked. And I think they were caught off guard and surprised by how well the Packers came out and played in that game.
But are we to the point, as you understand as Cowboys fandom, is it feels like it's a different excuse every single year for what the inevitable outcome is. Like, I hear what you're saying about a bad game plan, but at least the Eagles can look back and be like, well, last year in the Super Bowl, a few years before that, we won the Super Bowl. For the Cowboys, sometimes it was injury. Then it was the Zeke suspension where Patrick Creighton didn't catch the ball in the end zone, or whatever the case might be. Is it feels like there's a different excuse to the same outcome every year.
Totally get it. And there are other teams that reminds me of, the Buffalo Bills being one of them.
I could see that.
Now, the Bills maybe have won a couple more playoff games than the Cowboys, but same thing. They've only been to one conference championship game. Back-to-back years, they lose home playoff games in the divisional round. And, you know, they have a quarterback that they think is even better than Dak and an elite guy, and they haven't been able to get it done. You know, the reality is it's hard. I mean, it's really hard. It's why what the Chiefs are doing is so crazy impressive. And on some level, the Niners, to be honest with you, I mean, especially the Niners, I would say, in the sense that I didn't think they were the better team in either one of those games. In either one of those games, I didn't think they were the better team against the Packers or the Lions, and they still won.
They're still close enough, yeah, at the end of it to make the play happen. Are you in Vegas next week?
I am.
Nice.
I am.
Nice.
Just to gamble and stuff, or because of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
Super Bowl. I don't gamble. I invest. I'm not a gambler. I invest in great businesses like myfrontpagestory.com, which is by far the best Valentine's Day gift ever. I know the way you guys, Corey, you probably got like a gift card maybe to Chipotle.
That's what he does for me too. That you're right.
Yeah, I mean, give me a break. Go to myfrontpagestory.com. You literally talk to one of their writers for 10 minutes while you're driving to Chipotle. Tell them how great your significant other is. Dude, they write the most unbelievable story ever. It looks like it's on the cover of the Dallas Morning News. Looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper. It is phenomenal. And just to be able to say, hey, hon, I want to do something special for you. So I had a story written about you. It's incredible. Myfrontpagestory.com, myfrontpagestory. For once, change it up, Corey. Do something unique and cool for once. Myfrontpagestory.com.
Yeah, the best way is not through her stomach. It is through her heart. That's the way.
Don't be like the Cowboys. Try something different, and maybe you'll succeed. Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you very much, Ross. We'll see you in Vegas.
Next one's calling you.
All right, man.
Yeah, sounds great. See you, dudes.